What's up guys, it's Will back again, and today's review is Nocturnal Animals. Nocturnal Animals is a psychological thriller film that was written and directed by Tom Ford and is based on the 1993 novel entitled Tony and Susan, written by Austin Wright. So this film kicks off when Amy Adams' character Susan receives a screenplay in the mail from her writer ex-husband Edward, played by Jake Gyllenhaal. The screenplay is entitled Nocturnal Animals and actually plays out on screen for the majority of the film. The core premise of the screenplay is that a family is traveling through Texas and they run into three dangerous men who eventually take the mother and daughter prisoner. After this, the father Tony, also played by Jake Gyllenhaal, teams up with Detective Bobby Andes, played by Michael Shannon, as the two attempt to track down these three dangerous men and bring them to justice. And the rest of the film is spent watching the screenplay play out on screen, while we're also provided some insight into the troubled existence of Susan. Okay, so I know you guys have wanted me to review this one for quite some time, and ever since I saw the first trailer, I was really excited to see it. Well, it just arrived at my local theater last night, and while I do think it's better than the 72% score it currently has on Rotten Tomatoes, I don't think it's without its weaknesses either. Firstly, the acting. Everything about the trailers led me to believe that Amy Adams would do most of the heavy lifting in this film and that Jake Gyllenhaal wouldn't really be in it all that much, but the way it plays out in the film itself is actually quite the opposite. The most exciting parts of this story are the ones that are taking place within the screenplay that Amy Adams is reading to herself. Don't worry though, she doesn't narrate the whole thing or anything like that, it just plays out in real time. And Jake Gyllenhaal plays the lead in the screenplay, Tony, and he really shined once again. He's easily one of the best actors out there today because he nails every single role and he does it in a way that's unique and compelling. Jake Gyllenhaal did a really great job as Tony because he shows you that raw emotion that any father and husband would be feeling after such a traumatic experience. But I don't want to give off the impression that Amy Adams is bad in this one or anything. I don't think she can be bad. She's too good of an actress to allow that to happen. I think she's got to be one of the best actresses out there right now, and she delivered a really strong performance here once again, but I thought the character herself was just okay. She lives this sort of depressing existence as a discontent art gallery owner that wears a lot of eyeliner, and sometimes the character herself felt a bit over the top. I love the performance, just not the design of the character in certain spots. The other two key characters you need to know about live within the screenplay, and that's Detective Bobby Andes, played by Michael Shannon, and Ray Marcus, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson. Michael Shannon also contributes mightily to what overall is a very well acted film. His character is a no-nonsense one that will seek justice at any cost necessary. He wants to catch these criminals and bring them to justice, and he does so in a very memorable fashion. But I thought Aaron Taylor Johnson might have stolen the show, you guys, because he was insanely good in this role. Ray is just the worst kind of human being possible, and you love to hate him. He slides right into that villainous role, and in turn makes you really start rooting for our main duo to bring he and his friends to justice for the crimes they've committed. But Aaron Taylor Johnson did a very good job portraying Ray as that character that's just sort of mentally lost control, and in turn will make you hate everything about him, but that's the point. This film also has some fantastic cinematography. It's definitely one of the bright spots because a lot of the story is actually told through the visuals. The locations and character expressions help give you a sense of where this fictional story is taking place and which direction this manhunt of sorts is headed. It reminded me a lot of a darker version of Hell or High Water. It could partially be because they both take place in Texas, but I think it's more about how the shots give you an idea of the vastness of the Texas-based locations as well as the hectic nature of the events that are transpiring. The fantastic duo of Nick Cave and Warren Ellis, who also did the score for Hell or High Water, really delivered another thrilling and dramatic sounding score. The music in Nocturnal Animals really does a great job making you feel how frantic and dark this whole screenplay is. The destruction and despair that our fictional characters cause and deal with is highlighted by the music that relays the same feeling to you, the audience, that the characters are feeling, and that's just how it should be done. In regards to the story itself, I do want to say that quality-wise, it's a bit uneven. Act 1 and I'd say about half of Act 2 are exciting and thrilling and just very dark and ultimately contain the best parts of the film. Act 3, however, starts to get a little too ridiculous, and it sort of felt like our fictional writer didn't quite know how to wrap up his story, because the things the characters do are really unrealistic and silly, and the only reason that you could possibly fathom as to why they'd actually do them is to create more suspense. The ending too might work for some, but I really doubt it because it leaves way more questions than answers. Ambiguous endings can either be a good or a bad thing depending upon how well the third act does at wrapping things up. Well, if you have a disappointing and somewhat inconclusive third act combined with an ambiguous and anticlimactic ending, I think that's going to frustrate a lot of viewers, and that is what you get here. It's one of those where it just ends and you're likely going to be like, huh, That's it. Two other problems I had with this film were the dialogue and some of the editing choices. The acting of these characters is top notch, but some of the actors' performances are capped by how poorly some of the interactions are written. Characters will say things both from the real world and the fictional script that don't feel realistic whatsoever. This isn't prevalent constantly, but you could definitely point to a few lines in almost every interaction that feel a bit heavy-handed or just out of place. And finally, some of the editing choices are questionable in my opinion. There's several points where the filmmakers will just throw in black frames for dramatic effect or jump cuts for whatever reason. There's also points where you cut between Amy Adams reading the script and the events unfolding within the script, and it's back and forth and back and forth, and it's sort of jarring. For me, it equated to a bit of frustration. But overall, I was fairly satisfied with Nocturnal Animals, but it's not without its flaws. I did think it had some fantastic acting performances and a great cast, a great first act and a half, a fantastic score, and awesome cinematography. Sadly, I also felt the third act and climax were disappointing, the dialogue could be a bit heavy-handed, and the editing choices were jarring occasionally. I'm gonna give Nocturnal Animals an 8 out of 10, and generally recommend you go see this one in theaters if you love these actors and you want to see a good psychological thriller film. So did you guys see Nocturnal Animals yet? What did you think of it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if not, let me know whether you'd be interested in watching this film or not. And as always, if you like this video, click that like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for much more content like this. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter for updates regarding all things movies and this channel, and like me on Facebook as well. That's all for now though. This is WillFoxification signing off. See you in the next review.